In this video, we're going to learn how to paint some Demonette flesh tones. We've got a figure here from Raging Heroes. There's a few sets of 5. You can see that it's got some markings on the side of the leg, going up the torso, around the side of the face. So that's it's going to be something a little bit new with our flesh tones. And I'm also going to do a somewhat larger sketch of all these little markings. So you kind of get you can see what it's like on the miniature, but also in a much larger view to get kind of a nice close-up of that. I've got some of the colors out on the palette here. In the darks, we've got some Reaper paints. These are high pigment paints. Some violet shadow. This is actually more of a bluish dark. We have an imperial purple. This is the reddest of all of the purples. There's a deep twilight that's kind of a little bit in between these two. And ashen brown is kind of a middle tone. We have some accents here with this Reaper pink. And I've got kind of a rotting flesh here. Menoth white base from Privateer Press, and one last Reaper color. This is going to be Maiden flesh. We're also going to do some glazing with some secret weapon washes. We'll talk about those when we get to that stage. Now this miniature, I've primed it white because the flesh tone is relatively light, and I wanted it to be, especially since it's kind of a chaos-y type flesh tone, I wanted it to be somewhat luminous. So that's why instead of the neutral gray primer, it's white. And as usual, it was brush-on primer. So we've talked about our paints in the miniature. Now I want to talk about our brushes and the palette. What I wanted to do before we get into the spots, normally I'm going to do this later in the video, but I thought I would do kind of a sample sketch here in a larger form of what's going to happen here. It's in the markings. I just thought it would be helpful to show what I'm doing on the face and around the sides of the body. So I threw out some of the original colors here. Purple. And what I'm going to do is just kind of replicate some of the colors that are already on the miniature. I'm going to establish the dark here. And now I'm going to work all the way down the cheekbone here too, because this way, so what I'm going to do is work this about to what we have now. So I also need to put some of the pink back out on the palette here. So that's kind of above the eye, brow, the nose, cheekbone. Tiny bit more of the pink in there. Okay. As I let this settle down, now remember we had taken some some of our Maiden flesh, which is all used up. I'll throw this back out. The eye, we had sort of indicated that right before we did some of our glazes. See a little bit of, now you won't have to put this kind of shading in, obviously, because it's very tiny. But you almost get this kind of shading of the eye by default. And you can see on the underside of the eye we've got this, it's darker, but nowhere near as dark as what's above it. Here's some of our shadow here. See, this is kind of what we were already doing with our glazing, except that with some of our glazing over here, we had done, see, in the inside parts of the eye, done a little bit of this. And even over here. Now that that's dry, I can put in some of the lighter cheekbone colors. So we've got most of the structure of the face. This is about what we've built up to now. So what we'll do is throw some of the, this is the violet shadow. Now of course this will be done really small on the miniature itself. So it'll look a little bit different. What we're going to do, I'm going to hold the miniature this way. Put that top eyelash in, and then we'll be turning it upside down. And you can see I'm connecting the pupil to that upper lid, because if it's just floating in the middle, it's going to look really strange. You don't want it just floating in the middle. And we'll also be adding an eyebrow. Now we're not going to be really worried about doing stuff like throwing the pupil in. It's too small for that. We won't be worried about that. What we are going to do, we need to put in our markings. And you'll see as I do this, we have some larger ones, See how they get smaller? Start with the larger one. See these little clusters that I'm making? So again, start bigger, work in smaller clusters. And this is what we'll be doing all along the side of the torso, down the legs. And some of these will be more toned down than others. So I might even go back some of the pink and knock some of these down. And this is what we've done here. Like our spots here. And in some cases, we have very big spots. And then worked our way down into smaller spots. You see as I got smaller here, closer to the face. And we're going to be doing that kind of across the whole body as well. So hopefully this little sketch is useful for the rest of what we're going to do with the flesh here. So let's apply this to the flesh tone. Here's something that I'm going to introduce to the palette. This is made by Vallejo. It's called Glaze Medium. You know, the Reaper also makes something similar to this. And what it does, I'll just throw a little bit out here. It helps to keep your color active for a bit longer. So when you're mixing up, you put a little bit of this goes a long way. So this mix, this is going to stay workable for a really long time. Sometimes I even throw a little dot of this into my paint that's on the palette if I know I'm going to be working with it for a while. So I'll throw this out there. We're going to work some of our flesh tones now. Still with the shaded base coat. We're going to try and get just a teeny bit lighter. You can see I mixed some more of the pink and Maiden flesh. And I'm after a little more the details. I'm going into the cheeks around the eyes, this top part of the arm, this top part of the chestnut. I don't want to do too much here. And just let that flow down. Then take some of the twilight here. And kind of connect those two dots back to my somewhat lighter flesh. I'm going to get the brush at a good angle here, so hopefully you can see your other cheekbone, again on the nose, this top part of the leg. Another reason why I like to have the miniature on something like this, I can just keep spinning it around, keep working rapidly on all areas of the figure. I don't want to get tied down in just one area. You can see there's almost a bit of translucency to the colors that I'm putting down here. So again, working on the legs back to the torso here, working my way down. A little more the Maiden flesh. So I'm going to go back to the top of the head. And you can see how this craft brush, it keeps a decent point. That's not a shabby point for a size 8 craft brush. And the reason why I'm sticking with it at this stage, because this is still technically, I refer to this as a base coat. This is not any kind of final shading. I consider this my initial shading. All I'm trying to do is just set things up for my glazing stage. So now here on this part of the leg, again, I need to get light enough so that my spots will show up. And I can see here it's a little bit more of a, there's this bright pinkish red in here. That's again what our glazes are for. That's kind of a next stage kind of a thing. So what I'm going to do is up here on that top part of the hip, make sure it's light enough. Work down on the top of the leg here. There's like a bony, kind of spiny type thing sticking out of the leg there. And this is kind of your prototypical Demonette. So I thought this particular flesh stone would also translate to other figures, kind of the same variety. So let's get this so you can see it. So what I'm trying to do is have these, see how this kind of goes, it's not really hair, it's like a bony crest, and I'm trying to pull this down into the cheekbones. Some more of the face. The shoulder here is more of kind of a bony outcrop, so I'll leave that. I'll leave that be. So we're going to work again this top part of the torso and the chest. You can see this is catching light, this is not down in the shadows, so we haven't really messed around with that very much. And if I should feel like I need to go back in with some purple, I can do that by taking some of the amethyst. Just creating something that maybe here on this, I want to get a little bit more, I want more of a transition there. I'll do that. Take some away. That needs to be fairly dramatic there. I'm just kind of moving around every so often. Same one here. I need some light. Along this edge, I need some light. Top of this certainly needs some light because your light source is probably going right down on top of it. Now what I had done on this, you can see there's some lighter spots in areas where it was dark. We can try the same thing here. So I'm going to make a somewhat lighter color here and down in the shadow area here. Do a few brighter spots. Let's make sure you can see. It wasn't terribly dramatic. It was just a hint at some lighter spots there. I want to get a little bit lighter up towards the neck here. And even on the arm, I've got all these highlights on the bluish gray, but I didn't feel like I had enough on the arm itself. So you can carry this as far as you want to. You can add more darks, whatever I am going to try. Got some of the violet shadow here. I want to see if I can add a few really deep darks in a few places. Just pick out where I think I might want an edge, like here. See the undersides of some of this bony structure over here. Just here and there. And then in the opposite direction, maybe a few highlights on the hair. And if I go silent a few times, it's because I am literally trying to hold my breath. Want some darks here on that kind of shoulder pad item. Pull some away. So I think at this point, I might just call it finished on our Demonette. Again, you can spend more time refining, going in with some additional glazes either way, making things. So here's, we add some purple to that. There's any number of directions you can go with this if you want, but that's all up to you. And I hope you enjoy painting your Demonette flesh tone as well.